23. We're going to begin the meeting at 5:05 PM. May I have roll call, please?
Councilmember White,
Here.
Councilmember Voigt,
Here.
Councilmember Lara,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Fenn, Mayor Martinez.
Here. Do we have any public comment today for closed session items?
I have no written comments. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
Okay, seeing none, then City Attorney John Pinckney, can you read the items for discussion?
Yes, the council will meet in closed session. Item number B1, conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, 2, and 3, and/or 3, and it's two workers' comp matters. And then item B2 is conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation, and this involves a claim by Jamel Frazee and Kara Frazee received on August 30th, 2023.
All right, thank you. With that, we will adjourn to closed session.
Hello, hello.
Okay, we are returning from closed session. City Attorney Pinckney, do we have report out from closed session?
The council met in closed session. Item B1, conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1, 2, and/or 3, and this involved workers' compensation case number COBM 0118 and 4A22111, 68DM-0001. There was no reportable action. And then item B2, conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D2 and/or 3, claim by Jamel Frazee and Cara Frazee received on August 30th, 2023. There was reportable action on this item. There was a motion to return as untimely. Let me restate that. There was a motion to return the claim as to untimely portions of the claim and to reject remaining claims as insufficient. The motion was made by Councilmember White. The second was by Councilmember Voigt. And the vote was Mayor Martinez approving the motion to return and reject the claim, as I stated in the motion, and Voigt in favor, Laura in favor, and White in favor. And that concludes the report out from closed session.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pinckney. With that, we will be going to the regular session of the Beaumont City Council for September 19th, 2023. I will call to order at 6:05 PM. Roll call, please.
Councilmember White,
Here.
Councilmember Voigt,
Here.
Councilmember Laura,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn. Oh, he's absent. Mayor Martinez.
Here. And with that, Councilmember Voigt, can you lead us in the pledge?
Absolutely.
Please
Please stand with us. Ready? Begin. I pledge
Okay, do we have any conflicts of interest disclosure, adjustments to the agenda requests? Okay, seeing none, then we will go to item E. This is the announcements, recognition, proclamation, and correspondence section of the meeting. We'll start with item E1, is the Breast Cancer Awareness Proclamation. Our PIO, Julie Van Hook.
Good evening. So I'm here to read the proclamation for Breast Cancer Awareness Month for October 2023. Whereas National Breast Cancer Awareness Month is recognized annually in October, serving as a time to educate, support, and raise awareness about prevention, early detection, and treatment. Whereas it is critical to honor and remember those who have battled breast cancer, celebrate survivors, and stand in solidarity with those currently battling this challenging disease. Whereas according to the American Cancer Society, when breast cancer is detected early and is in a localized stage, the 5-year relative survival rate is 99%. Whereas early detection includes performing monthly breast self-examinations and scheduling regular clinical breast exams and mammograms, with the American Cancer Society recommending an annual mammogram for women once they reach the age of 40. Whereas breast cancer is the second most common cancer in American women, with the American Cancer Society estimating that 287,000 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer this year. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Beaumont hereby proclaims the month of October 2023 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month to raise public awareness in recognition of the illness and its effects, encouraging women especially to be conscious of the benefits of early detection, diagnosis, and treatment of breast cancer. Be it further resolved that City Council, in a powerful display of support, calls upon the City of Beaumont employees to don in pink attire throughout October to raise awareness for breast cancer and show solidarity with those affected by this disease. In support of this effort, City employees will wear pink every Wednesday, and the Beaumont Police Department will display breast cancer awareness pink patch on their uniforms. Through donations from the sale of the Beaumont Police Department's pink t-shirt and patches, the city will donate proceeds to fund breast cancer research and services. And just to note today, too, that the chief is wearing those pink patches.
Thank you. Very nice. All right, so council, you hear that, October Pink Month. Some of us pull off pink better than others, but that's okay. For a good cause. Thank you so much. Item E2 is moving to the Youth Council swearing in. So at this time, I'd like the City of Beaumont's Youth Advisory Council, the class of 23-24, come forward and assemble at the podium if you would. So just in the line's fine. You can find that one. Very nice. So this year we have 14 members that have been chosen to be on the Youth Advisory Council. Looks like we have 11 here today. Deputy City Clerk will be swearing you in today to do the official oath, and I hope you're ready for a fun-filled year. It's a good-looking class. We've got a lot planned for you, but we also want to hear from you. So the whole idea of this Youth Council is to get your input from the youth point of view. We'll bounce off some ideas that we have and hopefully get some good input on your end, but also hear comments on what you think you might want to see from the city, direction from the city, and so forth. And our council will be discussing more later in the meeting about possible goals and visions for you that you can talk about in our first meeting coming up October 10th. So that's our first official meeting. You should have that email, and hope to see you at the State of the City. That's on September 28th. And we'll talk more about that. But enough of that, let's get you sworn in to be official. So Deputy City Clerk.
Okay, all of you can raise your right hand, please. And then just repeat after me. I, and then state your name. Do solemnly swear. That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of California. Against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And that I will bear true faith and allegiance. To the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of California. I take this obligation freely. Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. And I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Congratulations.
All right, congratulations. So at this time, I'd like a photo, if you guys are up for a photo. All right, let's get a photo of her. Yeah, those have them down here is fine, and we'll just do them back like we usually.
Want to come over?
Just kind of all of it, fill it all in.
Stand right against you.
That's okay, man, we don't judge here.
We can put you in the back.
First row, can you come in? Just slightly. First row. Yep, there you go. There we go. Perfect. Wonderful. And I'm going to take a couple on 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're good. Thank you.
Parents, you got it? Yeah. Good? Oh, no, if I have some shaking, you're good? Too slow, too fast? Oh, okay. Airdrop. Right, so again, thank you, Youth Council. We'll be discussing our vision and goals at that first meeting, also electing officers. So you should have got the email about those positions that are open. So make sure you come prepared so we can discuss. All right, going on to E3, the 10U Beaumont All-Stars Team Recognition. Come on in.
Go ahead. Come all the way down. Come all the way down. There you go.
All right, come on.
It's a full team. A
No
full
problem.
team. I view this. How do I full screen this? Yeah, you guys can stay right behind me. There you go. All right. Well, Mayor and Council, we have before you our 10U Girls Softball All-Star Team, who did an incredible job this summer. And I'd like to just explain to you and share with you how awesome these young ladies not only represented our city, but truly dominated their competition in the tournaments that they played with for the Pony, making it all the way to the World Series and winning the tournament as the World Series champions. And so we wanted to bring them to council and share their feats and all the great things that they did in their tournaments for All Stars. They went 18-5 overall. They outscored their opponents for the total, all their tournaments, 173 points they scored, only allowing 71 runs against them in all their tournaments. So
Wow.
they really did a great job. And had a great time doing it, not only just representing our city, but also just doing a great job being friends and having fun out there. So we wanted to bring them before you and share in their victory. We have a certificate that I'll present to their coach, Jessica, and then we can take pictures with the council. But we wanted to bring them before you to congratulate them, say thank you very much for representing us and doing such a great job in your tournaments. Congratulations, ladies.
Julio has it.
Right, so at this time, I'd like to give a proclamation to you. So let me read what it says. The City of Beaumont awards the certificate of recognition to the 10U Beaumont All-Stars. On behalf of the Beaumont City Council, we congratulate you on winning the 2023 West Zone Softball Pony World Series. Congratulations, ladies. Well done. Yep, we definitely need to fix it.
Why don't you guys come this way, right in front of her, come up here. Come all the way back here, and I'll take a picture with you guys. And then take your banners that you have, and show them your banners.
That's right.
All right,
Put them up, hold them up.
and then let's have someone in front hold this. Your coach is there. Jessica to Jessica, there you go. Mhm.
Get the coaches in the back.
Did she have the proclamation up front?
They have their banners up front.
Oh, they have their.
Yeah. Maybe we can have a proclamation.
It's the pressure.
Look like.
The pressure.
There you go, hold on.
There.
There you go, perfect.
Big smiles. We'll take a couple there on 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3.
Parents are good?
Parents get in,
Very
get front
good.
and center. Go for it.
Good, all
Wait, we
right.
got a couple.
Oh,
Yeah,
we
get
got
in the
some.
center.
Good,
Great
all right.
job.
Congratulations. Thank you for coming, appreciate it. Thank you. Good job. Yeah. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you again. Thank you for coming.
Great job.
Good job, everyone. I got it. Thank you for coming.
Hands. Good job.
Good job, good. They read the agenda this time. All right, as they exit, we're going, let's see there, to the public comment period. Item F, do we have public comment this evening?
I have no written comments. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line? Oh, I'm sorry, I do have a in-person. Rudy, do we have any callers?
I have no callers on the line.
Okay.
Okay, seeing none, we'll go to item G.
I'm sorry, I do have an
Oh, you
in-person.
do have one?
Yes.
Okay, so at that
Ms. Sharon
point-
Morris?
All right, let me open it up. So we're going to open up public comment at 6:18 PM. We'll say that any one person may address the city council on matters not on the agenda. There's a 3-minute time limit on public comments. There will be no sharing or passing of time to others, and state law prohibits the city council from discussing or taking action brought up by your comments. Hello, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, City Council and Mayor Martinez. My name, Oh, thank you very much. I have a loud voice, so I could have carried on. But my name is Sharon Morris, and I am a managing director of the local area nonprofit Voices for Children. We operate the court-appointed special advocate, or CASA program, for Beaumont and beyond in Riverside County. We're the only nonprofit in the county authorized by the juvenile court to recruit, train, and support very special community members who are assigned by one of those 5 juvenile judges to advocate for a child in foster care. Each child who enters the foster care system has experienced abuse, neglect, or abandonment, and unfortunately, the foster care system itself can cause additional trauma. Children are all too often separated from their siblings, they change foster care placements often and their schools, and they lose contact with friends, family, peers, and their community. CASAs provide children with a depth of service, care, and attention that is rarely matched in the foster care system. They commit to serving for 18 months, and they spend about 10 hours a month getting to know the children through regular visits and fun outings. CASAs speak up for children in court, at school, and in the community. They listen to children, and they champion the child's needs. They make sure that the child has access to therapy, to tutoring, and any resources they need to address their trauma and create a brighter future. Perhaps most important, they also become a trusted listener and confidant for the youth they serve. One of our judges said to me recently, when I see a struggling child that has a CASA, I believe that child has a better chance of being emotionally, mentally, and physically healthy because of the service that a CASA provides. Today, 15 children in foster care, removed from their homes in Beaumont, have their own CASAs. As we enter this fiscal year, we're committed to serving more youth from the city, and we would love more community members to make the commitment to serve these children as CASAs. We're very open to any ideas you or the city staff have to help us achieve these goals. As we know, many of our unhoused population were once in foster care. Youth in care often end up incarcerated, they don't finish school, or they have no support. And we strongly believe that a CASA can act as a preventative service to help this vulnerable population and in turn help our city. Finally, Katie got her CASA in 2018. She's from Beaumont. She was removed from her caregivers here. Robin became her CASA, and every month they catch up. With the support of her CASA, Katie worked hard to graduate early. She did her independent study here in Beaumont. She's currently working at Amazon. She got her driver's license last month and recently started a cosmetology school on 9/12. And I truly believe that was because she had one consistent adult in her life. So thank you. I look forward, I hope, to speaking to you about some ideas about recruiting more volunteers from the community. Thank you so very much. And I was worried I wasn't going to be able to follow that. Well, that was amazing. So thank you for a lovely Tuesday evening.
Thank you. Right, I'll close public comment at 6:22 PM. And that takes us to item H, we have G, I don't know my alphabet. So G, consent calendar. Any item, let's see, any items wish to be pulled by council? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve consent items G2 through G6.
I'll second. Oh,
Did you just
Or
G1.
G1, I'm sorry. Thank you for,
Good catch.
from G1 through G6.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt,
Yes.
Councilmember Laura,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn, Mayor Martinez.
Yes. All right, with that takes us to item H, Youth Council. So you saw our youth council, or some of them, remember there's about 4 or 5 that aren't here. Great group, I have some good feelings this year. We got an earlier start than last year. So what I'd like for council to do is to think, we're gonna be meeting youth council, first meeting October 10th. So at our first meeting in October, was it second, third? Second, if council has any ideas that they want to bring forward to youth council, you can wish to do it at that time, because we'll be discussing our vision, our goals, objectives, and then electing officers. So if there's any certain thing you'd like to have them consider as a part of their focus, please do that at the next meeting. All right, with that, item I is public hearing. Brings us I-1, the code amendment to several sections within Chapter 17 of the Beaumont Municipal Code to establish objective design standards. Staff report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In fall of 2021, the preparation of the draft objective design standards began during the time of the preparation of the 6th cycle housing element. Due to anticipated changes to the objective design standards related to the housing element process, we halted that until the housing element was certified by the state, which occurred in December of 2022. You might recall a work study was conducted with the Planning Commission on May 10th of 2023 and with the City Council on May 16th of 2023. Staff provided the consultant with comments from staff, the Planning Commission, and City Council, which have been incorporated into the public hearing draft before you tonight. The Planning Commission voted by a vote of 3-0 to recommend approval of the objective design standards. And this item was continued from the City Council September 5th, 2023 meeting as an open item that had no discussion. In the housing element, Program 19 identifies that the Planning Department shall facilitate the adoption of objective design standards for residential and mixed-use projects in order to expedite the approval process for such projects and support the city in meeting its housing goals. The public hearing draft of the objective design standards utilized existing development, specific plans, images and observations of the existing conditions and built environment, and the WRCOG draft objective design standards toolkit and best practices. The changes are proposed in the residential single family, residential traditional neighborhood, downtown mixed use, 6th Street mixed use, and the 6th Street mixed use residential zones. The recommended standards include facade articulation, compatibility with accent buildings, entries, material and parking design and access. No changes are proposed to the basic development standards, including density, setbacks, height, lot coverage, parking ratio, etc., or include standards for architectural style, window placement or design, privacy, roof design, and building colors. The public hearing draft does comply with the requirements in applicable law, including SB 35 and SB 330. So at this time, staff recommends that the City Council hold the continued public hearing and waive the first full reading and approve by title only an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Beaumont of California to amend Chapter 17.03.060 for residential single-family zone, Chapter 17.06.065 residential traditional neighborhood, Chapter 17.09.040 downtown mixed-use zone, Chapter 17.19.060 Sixth Street mixed-use zone, and Chapter 17.19.070 Sixth Street mixed-use residential zone to establish objective design standards in the Beaumont Municipal Code. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And we also have Jen and Monica from Lisa Weiss that prepared the document. I believe they have a PowerPoint presentation for you, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you. The PowerPoint should probably be done before public comment. Does council wish to see the PowerPoint? Yes? Okay.
Thank you, Carol, and good evening, City Council. I will share my screen now and to present a brief presentation on the hearing draft.
Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. I'm Monica Sidlick, Senior Associate with Lisa Weiss Consulting, and I'm here with Director Jen Murillo. Again, we're glad to be here, and I have just a few slides to help walk through the hearing draft objective design standards. So as you know, this part of our work with the city, the preparation of the objective design standards is part of a broader, the broader implementation efforts that follow the preparation of the housing element. So that is to say, it's implementing, it's the implementation of housing element, program 19. So tonight we'll very briefly review what we've done on this particular project and what it means for the code, and then we'll review the standards themselves. I should also mention that we'll focus on the changes between the last time we reviewed these standards and the draft that's in your packet this evening. So starting with the bigger picture here, the housing element acknowledges that many pieces of state legislation, the housing element acknowledges recent pieces of state legislation that relate to housing and to the control that local jurisdictions have on the review and approval of residential projects. A few key pieces of legislation are noted here on the slide. Perhaps the most relevant to us tonight is SB 330, which prohibits the city from rejecting residential and residential mixed-use projects on the basis of subjective standards, which amounts to an opportunity on the part of the city to specify exactly what we'd like to see in residential projects. So effectively, what would we like to and expect to come out of a design review so that that same quality can be achieved ministerially? We do this by defining a set of what we call objective design standards. In short, these are design standards where no personal judgment is involved and they're easily quantifiable. They should acknowledge patterns that you would like to continue to see in the city. They should reflect community priorities, anticipate density bonus projects, be consistent with other regulations that are on the books, and lead to predictable and high quality outcomes. So we began by reviewing existing design standards in the code, design standards in the city's various specific plans, as well as guidance in the general plan as a starting point. Then we developed recommendations for how we would fold in new standards into your existing code. And here's where the amendments that are in your packet tonight go. Essentially the sections that Carol just called out. So as you know, your code has a lot of cross references. A lot of sections are written such that they reference sections in other parts of the code. This is good practice. It avoids repetition. It makes for a slimmer code, which is nice. So we followed suit, essentially by following that convention. So that's why the standards that we've recommended be inserted into one part of the code do apply to similar uses in other zones, in other parts of the code. So I'll go through the standards now. And as I mentioned before, these slides focus on the changes between the draft previously reviewed and the draft in your packet tonight, so these changes reflect the feedback that we heard from you all at those meetings and in subsequent written comments and discussion. So starting with the design standards for residential single family. For single family design, you'll recall that we introduced standards for required variation of planes, requirements for orientation and depth of entrances, also rear access. So you'll see the changes here amount to eave length and dimensions of the required rear landing area. We've recommended new standards for building materials and window design. So you'll see some minor changes to these standards, adding some flexibility for applicants. We recommended new standards for what we're calling 360-degree design. Comparable quality and level of detail for certain design elements on all facades of the structure. Also parking access and design. Again, some changes to introduce a bit more flexibility to applicants. Moving on to standards for multifamily and residential mixed use. So these standards are located in the RTN section of the code, but they apply essentially throughout the city, wherever multifamily and residential mixed use development occurs. In all of these zones that support residential mixed use. For these kinds of development, we introduce standards for building scale and massing, and several regulations for the design of the building envelope. You'll notice a few changes in our recommended requirements for buildings 3 stories and over. We simplified and made more objective these particular standards by breaking it down to 2 of 4 specific design measures. We also recommended design standards for roof lines of multifamily structures, and also similar to the standards for single family, we made this a bit clearer and a little bit more flexible. Also similar changes to the allowed and prohibited building materials. In response to some comments, we added 2 allowed frontage types, the arcade and the gallery frontages, which we understood are appropriate to and desired by the community for multifamily and mixed-use development types. And all of these ensure a sort of permeable frontage and active relationship between the public and the private realm. We also introduced standards for 360-degree design, standards for additions and remodels, and the design of usable open space, pedestrian access and circulation, parking access and design, and bicycle parking. There are a lot of sections here. But based on the comments we received, the changes amounted to an increase in the required width of walkways from 6 to 8 feet. We increased the minimum parking garage size and clarified the requirement for screening of visible structured parking. Moving on to the standards that are specific to the downtown mixed-use district. So note that these really only apply to non-residential development. That's because the standards that we just reviewed would apply to all multifamily or residential mixed use in the DMV zone. So really just what's left is non-residential. So we introduced standards for a range of design elements. Here we have similar standards relating to buildings over 2 stories and a few modifications to some supplemental standards to get the design elements just right and allow the right amount of flexibility. So two things really. Because the code is so heavily cross-referenced, the amendments called for not a lot, but just a little bit of moving around and cleaning up just to make sure that all of the standards as inserted to the code apply to all the right zones and only the right zones. And that we sort of took that as sort of an opportunity to fine-tune standards. And you can see it's underlined sections that apply to the zones up to the top, up on the top. These essentially just enhance the required landscaping for that, the required setback for just improvements to the street frontage environment. And that is a brief summary of the standards that are in your packet and where they apply and the range of elements we recommend addressing. And I will turn this back to Carol. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you for that. We appreciate that. So let's go ahead and open the public comment at, public hearing, at 6:38 PM. Do we have public comments?
I have no written comments. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing at 6:38 PM and open it up to council discussion. What do we have? All right, Councilmember Lara, go ahead and start us off.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor. I thought this was a great job. I really liked what I saw. The figures that you provide in here are extremely helpful. The suggestion that I would make or that I would like to see is that the figures and the descriptive items that are below the figures be maybe on one page or have a clear delineation of page breaks. Because as I was going through there, you would have a figure on one page and the delineation or the descriptions on a second page with the figure below it, and it would get confusing, at least to me anyways, as I was going through it. So maybe the figures and the descriptive items with the dimensions and everything on one page or the same page. There are some other minor items as far as details and descriptions like for stained and sealed beams, which are minor. I put notes in the ordinance, and I would just give that to staff because they're just minor changes. The only other suggestion I have would be if you have a multifamily dwelling unit, multi-story, and you have a balcony or a deck on the second story that wraps around the building, that it would be covered so that those on the second floor would not be walking out in the elements. Also, that the architectural features from the first floor would extend up to the second floor, so it look all like one building. That would just be a suggestion. Obviously, council needs to weigh in on that. But outside of that, very pleased with what I saw, so thank you very much for that. That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you. So, yeah, I am comfortable with the Planning Commission's review, and I'm glad that they recommend approval. And it looks like the staff and the consultants have made it sure that the standards are compliant with the law. So that was, of course, number one thing of our concern. But if we have no more comments, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to waive the full reading and approve by title only an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Beaumont, California, to amend Chapter 17.03.060 Residential Single Family Zone, Chapter 17.06.065 Residential Traditional Neighborhood, Chapter 17.09.040 Downtown Mixed Use Zone, Chapter 17.19.060 Sixth Street Mixed Use Zone, and Chapter 17.19.070 Sixth Street Mixed Use Residential Zone to establish objective standards, design standards in the Beaumont Municipal Code with Councilmember Lara's suggestions and input and notes to staff.
I'll second.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt,
Yes.
Councilmember Laura,
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes. Thank you so much for your presentation. All right, with that, goes to action items J. So we're on J1, consider adopting a resolution waiving the special event permit application fee and police department charges for service for the 33rd Annual Oktoberfest event at Noble Creek Regional Park. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. The item before you tonight is a request from the Beaumont Cherry Valley Recreation and Park District to waive fees for the special event permit application, as well as police services provided for their 33rd Annual Oktoberfest event that was actually held last weekend. The letter was received the Monday after the agenda was posted for the September 5th meeting. Therefore, we put it on this agenda, although the event has passed. Historically, the Park District has been invoiced for police services. I was informed recently that last year for 2022, the invoice for police services never made it over to the Park District. We have since invoiced them for 2022. It ranges anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000, and it's based on actual time served at the event by our police officers. The application fee is a new fee. It's actually a deposit. It's a fee-based deposit that was adopted by City Council. And the last fee study, it was effective July 1st. The Park District nor any other entity has ever paid an application fee for a special event. Because they have more than 1,000 individuals that attend the event, it is considered a major event, and therefore the deposit is $5,000. And what we do is we calculate actual staff time spent reviewing the application, writing the conditions, following up, et cetera, sending the letters. And in this case, for 2023, the actual staff time costs spent for this special event was $1,345.81. The council is asked to adopt a resolution waiving the special event permit application fee. However, staff is recommending that council not waive the police services fee. We do believe that that is an important part of the our budget and the organization, and traditionally in the past, City Council has never waived police services fees. And so our recommendation is to adopt the resolution, and the language therein is for the special event application fee only and not police services. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Gibbs. Let's open to public comments. Do we have public comments?
I have no written requests. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
All right, with that, we'll open to council discussion. Councilmember White?
I spoke to the, I don't know what's Mr. Burke's title.
General Manager.
General Manager. And he indicated to me that he's not supporting us waiving the fees for the police department. He doesn't want us to do that. So I don't know that that's I know it's something we have to decide tonight, but I don't think it's really in question. The new fees that we put in place have that. We didn't have the large event fees before, or did we?
Special event fees were zero cost prior, and through the all the cost analysis and assessment we did on the applications, through planning, it was determined staff spends, generally speaking, a lot of time processing large-scale special event fees.
So, and I think the benchmark you have to reach is 1,000 attendees.
Correct.
Besides the Parks District events, what other events have we had over 1,000 people?
Cherry Festival, although it happened before the July 1st adoption of the
Right.
fee schedule.
Cherry Festival, I think, is a little different because we make such a large contribution to their, to their process, to their event, because it brings a lot of people to the community. And I think what some of the Parks District events have that same effect. And so the reason I asked you about that is that my thought is that since we really only have, I mean, I think we still keep the 1,000, but I think we should sit down and try and work out with the Parks District on amounts that are more reasonable and specific, not only to the event, but to what they bring to the community. So I would suggest, I'm in favor of not waiving the police fees. I'm not sure where I stand on the other fees at this point. I want to hear from other council members. But I think that since the Parks District really, I think is different from another one, because they have the same events every year. And I would think there's a way to, to minimize costs by doing it every year as opposed to someone coming in with a brand new event. But that's my position on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember White?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate what Councilmember White was discussing, and maybe we can bring back discussion of the fee waiver for larger events and maybe look at our government partners or something along those lines as something we can continue to collaborate for to encourage that. I would be interested in discussing that further.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Laura?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I would not want to set a precedent by waiving the police officer fees, so I agree in that regard. Looking at this, I understand that the $5,000 has got to cover staff time, and I do think that we do need to cover staff time. However, for repeat events such as Cherry Festival, Oktoberfest, if there is a way to, I guess, sit down with them as Councilmember White suggested, but a way to look at, because the repeat events, I don't think anything really changes, that they have it in the same park, the traffic is the same. So if for repeat events, if there's just a way that we could streamline a process where if there are no changes from the prior year, that we look at maybe reducing the amount of time that our staff, to me, that would reduce the amount of staff time necessary to process this, and hopefully reduce the need for a large deposit. I do respect the fact that it is a deposit, and any unused portion of that deposit does get refunded back, but if there was a way to streamline that process for repeat events, regardless of size, I think I would appreciate that would be something that I would like to support. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. So reminding council that the portion of the fee request is the $1,345. So that's the part that staff calculated as their time to do, which I think is actually a pretty reasonable number for as big as that event is. So that tells me that it was probably streamlined quite a bit already to get that low of a number for that big of an event. But I am also in agreement that when something's the same every year, there really isn't a reason why they can't have something packaged ready to go every year. I know there's little tweaks here and there, but for the most part, I think there should be some sort of a streamline on those events that are reoccurring to get that maybe even down a little bit more. But that $1,345, when I saw that, it told me that they did streamline it pretty much already for that big of event. So maybe a little more would help them out. But if they're doing that at $1,345 and they can get a little more streamlined, I think it should be pretty consistent, keep it around that number, unless, of course, our time goes up from, calculation salary and all that stuff. But, so I'm in favor of also waiving that number, but, of course, PD is, I would not like to start a precedent with those fees as well. So, do we have enough to entertain a motion?
Real quick, I'm not sure what you just said about you're comfortable with waiving. Staff is recommending the special event permit application fees only?
Correct.
Is that the 1,300 that we're talking about?
Correct.
And are you saying that you're good with that?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So in a motion,
I move waive the full reading and adopt by title only a resolution of the City of Beaumont authorizing the waiver of a one-time special event permit application fee for the 33rd Annual Oktoberfest event at Noble Creek Regional Park.
I'll second.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Boyd?
Yes.
Councilmember Laura?
Yes.
Mayor Martinez?
yes. Okay, going to J2, to approve a 5-year software and services agreement with Sun Ridge Systems, Inc. for the replacement of the police department's CAD RMS system for the total of $968,596. Staff report, Chief Talese.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And so tonight I would like Lieutenant Chris Ramos to present as he's co-chaired this endeavor. And he's prepared, and I'll be here as well as long, excuse me, as well as other staff members to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. In June 2019, the Beaumont Police Department contracted with Mark 43 for computer-aided dispatching and record management software. At that time, Mark 43 was a new CAD RMS service in California that showed potential in its promised capabilities. Since transitioning to Mark 43, the service has failed to meet the needs of the Beaumont Police Department. There's been extensive and ongoing efforts by the department to work with Mark 43 to correct deficiencies, but their system continues to underperform. The 5-year contract with Mark 43 expires June 30th, 2024, so we're in our last year of the contract. The Beaumont Police Department desires to replace an underperforming system with an updated system that better meets the needs of the Beaumont community in terms of access, reporting, and analysis, and effectively enables the department to comply with all new and emerging data collection and reporting requirements. As you know, the CAD RMS system is one of the most critical software systems used by any law enforcement agency. Accurate records, data retrieval are essential for effective police duties and management. Reporting accurate crime data is a fundamental expectation of the community, and the Beaumont Police Department wants to continue meeting that expectation with the most effective available technology. Sunridge Systems is a California-based company that has been providing CAD RMS service to law enforcement throughout the state for over 38 years under the product name RIMS. RIMS has a proven track record for being an efficient and effective system, and every agency we contacted that uses RIMS provides positive reviews. The police department has evaluated RIMS and has determined that its product meets all current and future needs of the department. Unlike Mark 43, which provides a subscription service, RIMS is a licensed software which will be owned by the city after it's paid off. Our selection process for RIMS included a hands-on demonstration of the product, visiting other agencies to see the system in live production, and speaking to numerous agencies about the product. Our selection process was a collaboration with the IT department, the procurement department, city management, and the end users. The city of Emeryville has conducted an extensive evaluation and competitive bid process for determining Sunridge Systems was the best option for CAD RMS services. The implementation of a new CAD RMS service is expected to take 9 to 11 months, and the current contract with Mark 43 expires June of 2024. Using Emeryville's formal bid report under Beaumont Municipal Code 3.01.110 authorizes the city to determine that the competitive bid requirements have been completed. Sunridge System has presented a contract which breaks down the purchase costs of $636,215 into 5 annual payments of $127,243. There's also an annual support cost of $66,450. The annual cost for the first 5 years is $193,824. After the 5 years, when the system is paid off, we'll continue the support payment of $66,450. Our recommendation is to approve the 5-year software and service agreement with Sunridge Systems, including the purchase of a replacement CAD RMS service for the total 5-year amount of $968,596. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Let's look.
Mayor, before we start discussion, I need to verify whether or not there's a conflict of
Oh,
interest.
of course.
I noticed in this information from Emeryville Police Department, that's their RFP, right?
It is, yes.
Okay. And does our RFP match that? Because there's a point in here where it talks about requiring some ArcGIS experience, I believe is what I saw. ArcGIS is Esri software. And Do you know if we will be using our existing license, our existing ArcGIS license, or if this license is a part of the package, but we're not paying specifically Esri for that? In other words, we're paying the other department?
That's a separate contract.
Say again, please?
We have a separate contract with Esri for ArcGIS that will connect into the software system, as I understand it. It's not part of this contract.
Okay, so the purchase in this contract is not, payment's not going to
That's just
the
their
ESRI license.
it's their
Esri.
interface that will allow us to use our Esri ArcGIS and maps that we've
Okay.
created.
Well, with the information I have, many times over the years with the FPPC, I don't feel I'm in conflict here, so I'm going to go ahead and continue to discuss this.
All right. So that goes to public comment. Do we have public comment on this item?
I have no written requests. Rudy, do we have new callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
Okay, with that, it takes it to council discussion. You want to continue discussion? Oh, sorry. Councilmember Lar?
If there are no other comments, I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Do we have any comments further?
Are we good? I'll make a motion to approve the 5-year software and service agreement with Sunridge Systems, Inc. for the purchase of a replacement CAT RMS system in the total amount of $968,596.
I'll second.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt,
Yes.
Councilmember Laura,
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Chief. All right, with that, that goes to item J3. We have the discussion to consider an ordinance prohibiting the unlawful possession of a catalytic converter.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. So the City of Beaumont is considering an ordinance to prohibit the unlawful possession of catalytic converters. It's no secret that the city needs more tools for its police department to combat the rise in catalytic converter theft across the city. As you know, the catalytic converter collects precious minerals and metals from the emissions control system that are recycled at significant value to the thief. So this proposed ordinance would make it unlawful for any person to possess a catalytic converter that is not attached to the motor vehicle. The ordinance would also require any person who's in possession of a catalytic converter to provide immediate proof of lawful possession to law enforcement upon request. There are various manners, but some would include the bill of sale from the original owner with photographs, or documentation from an auto body shop proving the owner relinquished the catalytic converter to the auto body shop, or other manners as again prescribed in the ordinance. This ordinance would be enforced by the police department, and violators of the ordinance would be guilty of a misdemeanor. It could be punished by a fine of up to $1,000 or imprisonment for up to 6 months, or both. With that,
Okay, thank you,
happy
Chief.
to answer any questions.
Let's look at public comment for item J3.
I have no written requests. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
All right, then opens up to council discussion. And Chief, the only question I have real quickly is, so this is not for sale of the unit from one person to another, but it's a possession of it, correct?
Correct. So oftentimes it's very difficult when the officers are in the field. We encounter persons in possession of catalytic converters, but unless they're etched with a driver's license number, a license plate, a social security number, some way to identify who the lawful owner is, we just don't know who the victim is. And if there isn't a victim, it's difficult to prove that there's a crime. And therefore, we can't just seize property that may be lawfully possessed, even against the officer's best hunch and knowledge that it's unlawfully possessed. This ordinance would allow us to detain, identify, issue a citation or an arrest if warranted, collect the property so that they're deterred from even profiting from the theft, and make the proper seizure.
And then if shops or so forth were to have a pile of these things, and each one of those should have proof that they got that lawfully, is that?
Yeah, so this ordinance, I didn't craft this ordinance to address specifically the recyclers because it's laid out very clearly in the Business and Professions Code and the California Vehicle Code, recyclers' duties and the ability to charge them with a crime if they don't follow the law on their end.
Okay, I understand. Thank you, Chief. Councilmember Lara?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm sure you exhausted all your other remedies before bringing a catalytic converter ordinance to us. I could resist, sorry. What is the maximum allowable fine that, is there, can we go above 1,000?
My understanding and I may have to defer to the city attorney, but my understanding on the first offenses of this type, 1,000 would be the highest under our BMC. When you look at the fireworks ordinance where council approved higher, I believe that those specifically dealt with repeat offenders for the fireworks ordinances or violations. So in this case, unless the city attorney knows differently, $1,000 would be our maximum fine on this ordinance.
Is that the?
If you want us to look at a higher fine, I don't remember what we said on the fireworks.
I think we went up to
1,000 first.
5,000.
Yeah, that's where it started.
5,000 was high.
I think 1,000, 2,500, and 5,000.
It's incremental.
Yep.
So if you wanted us to look at doing that
If we could,
repeat offenders, we can look at that.
I'd like that because it's got a sting, I think, in my opinion. Other than that, Chief, I appreciate you bringing that to us. It's another tool in your tool belt for this, so thank you for that. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember White?
Yeah, I would definitely support going back and adding a more powerful sting if possible. These are impactful on the people that are victims of this, and I think that ensuring that we set a precedent that this isn't acceptable in the city, I think is important to do. So thank you for bringing this to us.
You're welcome.
I'm going to expose that I don't work on my car very much, but how do you steal a catalytic converter? Just out on the street? You go in front of somebody's house and?
Right, really easy with the battery-operated reciprocating saw. So like what we'd call a sawzall. It's just 2 cuts, and they're out of there really quickly.
And any idea what the value of those could be?
It's in the hundreds, but I couldn't tell you because there's a scale just like with copper theft. Depends on what the scale is, what the palladium is, which is the most precious metal, is valued at the time. It does fluctuate.
Okay, and is the maximum, the 900, 950, whatever it is for shoplifting, is that a benchmark here that if someone has catalytic converters more than 1,000, that it's no longer, it could be charged as something more than a misdemeanor?
No, in fact, we tried to get a catalytic converter bill through the assembly. And as this council's aware, anything that stiffens penalties is not making its way through the legislature. So that bill failed. So now that brought it back to the local level for the possessor, not the recycler. And so that's why I delayed purposefully bringing this forward because I do try to solve things at that state level if there's a vehicle code or a penal code. But when the legislator failed to act, then it falls back on us. And we brought this as swiftly as we could.
And did the bill only deal with recyclers, or did it have any fines or recommendations for people in possession of one?
It was going to be enhancements for possessing a stolen catalytic converter.
What was the fine going to be on that?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I don't know. But it didn't pass. Again, the tough part about it is tying it to a victim. And so if they don't etch in a number that we can identify with, it's hard to tie it to them. What's nice about this ordinance is we don't have to do that. The burden is on the possessor to show that they're in lawful possession. And if they're not, then we'll cite them and we'll send it through with our turbo data, just like an animal control citation or noise ordinance. and then it'll go to collections if they don't pay it.
If you think it's likely there's going to be repeat offenders, then I would like to look at whatever you refer to. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, my research came back at 1,000, but I know the city attorney specializes in, in this type of work, so.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And I know that for the victim, it can be $1,000, $2,000 to replace that thing.
Easily.
I've had people tell me that, so. So let's see, so are we asking to bring this back? What is this, is direction? Yeah, it's a direction here. So discuss and provide direction. So do we have direction?
We do.
You comfortable?
Just a little further. I think that the numbers we used for fireworks would work, if we could.
Mayor, for clarification, the direction is to go ahead and notice the public hearing.
Well, that's why I asked, because I
Okay.
wanted to know if you were gonna look up the numbers first and then put that in the public
We
hearing.
can, we can put it
Coordinate.
into the staff report, get it noticed, and discuss it during the public hearing.
Perfect.
So
One more
we,
question. One more question. So you find somebody, you might learn something. So you find somebody and you want to, is it pressing charges? Does this have to go before the DA for anything to happen, or can we just assess a fine?
So in this case, administrative fine. If we wanted to press charges, then we'd have to speak with the district attorney to file the charges, or you have to relinquish it to the city attorney as a city prosecutor. That has not happened anywhere in this county yet. So,
I just don't want to do something that is going to require the district attorney's office to, to support us on it if, if
Right.
we have an experience of them not always supporting us on issues that we bring
the
forward.
good news is now the district attorney has understood the problem of quality of life crimes and is much more engaged with us on those. So in this case, if we have somebody with multiple, we're going to work with the district attorney's office on that to see what they'll help us with. If not, we'll cite them administratively, identify them, and then, our crime suppression unit, our detective bureau has been very successful in going back and writing warrants and solving even bigger issues,
Okay.
Bigger crimes this is a symptom, and then we try to go back and get the stimulant, right?
And that's why I really think the progressive makes sense, because it's going to be harder to turn down a $5,000 third-time offender, as opposed to, $1,000 each time. So I'm in favor of this. Do you need a motion? No, we just need a direction, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chief. So item J4, your Sixth Street median improvement project for the monument signs. We have staff report. Let's see where we're at from Mr. Story.
Mayor and council, thank you so much. The staff report that you have before you tonight is really an update on the progress of what's going on for the Sixth Street median improvement project. This is a capital improvement project, R21, that is going to be enhancing the center medians that go from Highland Springs heading west to Illinois. And so right now, one of the things that we'd like to bring before you is an opportunity for discussion and for you just to take a look at the monument signs that we have proposed. So the attachment that's included in the staff report is some renderings of different options for the monument sign. The monument sign is going to sit in the center median. It's going to be in the second median heading west from Highland Springs. So just a little bit in front of the Stater Brothers Shopping Center right there. We wanted to give you a chance to see it and discuss it if you had any direction or opinions or anything, and then we could take that to our architect. We do have Architera on the line. Ryan, one of our project managers who is assigned to this project, is on Zoom to answer any questions you might have. And I'll leave it to you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Story. Let's ask for public comments first to see we have, if any?
I have no written comments. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
Okay, thank you. So that'll go to discussion. So I see no tiles in here, so I think it shouldn't take too long. Yes, I went there. You know I did. So.
Wow.
I wasn't here for that.
What's in
Good one.
Should I get a recap?
That was a treat.
Yes.
All
April
right, so-
2020.
I don't know. We all have lights on up here, so let's see. Councilmember Voigt, we'll start.
I appreciate the renderings. I think that they are unique, definitely. I will just kind of voice that I like option 1A. I think that the darker writing for Beaumont, the city elevated, I like the use of the blue. And I just really think that, for me, that would be the suggestion that I would lean towards.
What number was that?
1A, it's the
Monument
top
sign.
left.
Okay.
On that one. I will just kind of provide feedback on option 2. I don't know if I'm a fan of how tall it is, although I do appreciate being able to see it from further away. And if I had to go with the second option, I would go with 3.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Lara, 1A.
Yeah, kind of along those same lines, I liked option 1B. I was wondering if the mountain on 1B could be left to rust naturally, so that that part wouldn't need to be maintained. So the mountain portion of, was it 1B? Would, I guess, be metal that would rust, so it would be brown, or, and then you'd have the blue background behind it. The only concern I had was those are cutout letters, and when you look at "thank you for visiting," you'll be looking back through the front of that mountain that may have Beaumont cut out there, so I don't know if that would look very good. Or that was a concern, I guess, or a question I had. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because it's the two-sided monument, and I
Right.
can ask Ryan if he's on there. Is Ryan on the line?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, we realized that, so we were going through a series of options, so we would have to further flesh that out, but we realized that ourselves after we sent this out. So there'd be a way we could make that work, but we would have to kind of further refine that design. And our goal too was, once we have kind of a selection and direction on which option you guys like, we would kind of further tackle this and do a more refined concept and then construction details. So this is only the first
concept
step here. Yeah.
Okay, and I also, at least for the downtown area work that we're doing, option 3 was really nice looking. I like that. It was consistent with the city clock, and I really liked the way that looked as well. Yeah, oh yeah, perfect.
Okay.
That's all I have, Mayor. Thanks.
Okay, Councilmember White.
So even though this didn't seem to help the first time around, I'm going to put up the same advice that I did when we started talking about tiles. I develop web applications, and in that process, I have to pick design colors and stuff like that. I'm not very good at that. I always go to our graphics department for that. And so I'm going to try and do the same thing I did for the tile, which is I'll let you guys decide what looks the best. I think they all look good, but again, you know, where that's coming from. So anyways, whatever you guys want to do on this, I'm in support of it.
All right, thank you for that. Are these, I didn't read if I see anything that said they're illuminated. Are they illuminated?
There will be we're looking at a solar option, like a ground that'll project to it.
And that's on either 1A, B, and 3? They all have illumination of some sort, or just the ones that are closer to the ground?
I think, Ryan, I think it would be just probably 1A, 1B would have the illumination from the ground.
I think option 3
Does it-
states panel illuminated from interior.
Yeah, interior.
Yeah.
Correct, yes, there's several options, and that'd be something else we'd look at further. So, yeah, so option 1 would be more so uplit from the ground. Option 2 could be kind of a series of either of that, or an option 2 or 3 could definitely have the interior illumination.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
and the solar batteries and lighting has come a long way. So, and that, with the LEDs, I'd be able to support any one of those.
All right, thank you. So, and I did like number 1. I was concerned about the graffiti and stuff being closer to the ground, being more accessible. I thought maybe higher up might discourage that, especially with a construction budget of that number there. It's pretty pricey, so, so that was what I was considering. I did like the mountain look, and I liked it better overall, but I was concerned, especially in that area, where there's a lot of foot traffic. I was concerned about that. So I don't know what that means. I just threw that out there. But I do like one. Tell you the truth, because my eyes are terrible, I didn't see much of a difference between one and A and B. Can you
The lettering
just the
coloring.
lettering?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, these bifocals don't work. Progressives are not. I gotta get used to them. Okay, so I see now the lettering. Okay, so I would support 1B. I do like 1B. So right now I've got a 1A, two 1Bs, a neutral, and then 3s as a second option. So it looks like I
Downtown.
would say 1s probably have it.
Do we have a digital in there? No? Okay.
So I would not. Right around the corner, you're gonna have a nice digital one, so probably at some point. Maybe, we don't know. Let's see, is this a direction or what do we have? This is just feedback. Okay, so I think we know that we like the 1s, so we can take 2 and 3 out. So just the idea of what that might be. So if you want to bring back those final 2 to say, hey, this is what we have, maybe that would be fine.
And then staff has been talking about option 3 in the Barrio area or the downtown.
Now, see,
As
that I
part
like.
as part of the revitalization to mix it up, maybe one in front of City Hall.
Oh, that's perfect. See, I
So
like
we
that
do,
idea.
like option 3. Option 2 is 18 feet tall.
Yeah, well, it's elevated.
It is.
Okay, well.
But I do have one other question because the San Gorgonio Pass Water Agency has been asking. They've been patiently waiting for this discussion. One of the other thoughts we were talking about is taking option 1 and putting it up at the sports park. They would like to mirror and put it in front of their property at Brookside and Beaumont Avenue. So those were some other things that we were
Where all the
talking about.
students
Maybe
go
not
by.
just for this meeting.
Did they see this rendering? Have they seen this?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Have they seen this rendering?
Yes,
They
yes,
have.
they have.
And they too liked the one.
They said whatever council picks, they would like to mirror it. They would like a monument at that corner. I did ask about landscaping. And the budget would only cover the monument right now.
It'd be nice to see one in front of the sports park as well.
Now, I do like the idea because there is consistency between 1 and 3 when it comes to the Beaumont Mountain and stuff. So I do like that consistency, and that's a great idea. So with that, I think you have enough direction to go forward, and I won't nitpick on A and B, so we'll just see what comes forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, oh, you're skeptical, okay. But no digital. All right. With that, we are on J5, the reappropriation of fiscal year 23 unexpended expenditures, budget overages, and project funding rollovers. Whew.
There we go. Well, good evening, Mayor and council members. Before you is a request to approve 3 items. First is the reappropriation of the fiscal year 23 expenses not spent by the end of the fiscal year. Per the City of Beaumont Financial Management Policy, City Council must authorize any unspent funds to be moved to the next fiscal year to allow for budgetary authority. Attachment A provides a detailed listing of the expenditures by fund and department, as well as the reason for why the expenditures were not spent in fiscal year 23. The second item is to approve a budget adjustment for categories that have gone over budget in a department at the end of fiscal year '23. Schedule B is the budget adjustment form that we'll use to record our adjustment. And Schedule C details the 3 categories that were over budget and shows the remaining departments that came in under budget. Finally, the third approval is to reappropriate the capital improvement funds that were not spent during fiscal year '23 and allows them to be moved into fiscal year '24 for budget authority. Attachment D shows the detail of the balances by project, and Schedule E, which I believe we handed out to you after because it was missing in the agenda, is the lengthy budget adjustment form. So staff is requesting the approval of the reappropriation and budget adjustments. I know these are a lot of numbers, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And I also have Tara Chamberlain here, who put these lovely schedules together for you and to assist with detailed questions you may have.
Very well. Thank you so much. So let's see if we have public comment on item J5.
I have no written comments. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
Okay, with that, we'll open it to council discussion. Councilmember White, looks like you're up.
Can you please just go over what attachment D is again?
Attachment D. Attachment D is all the projects, and this is the balances that we're carrying over on all those projects that have not been spent
So when you
by the end of fiscal year '23.
So when you talk about road and bridge diff and traffic signal diff,
Yeah.
can you just sort of give me a layman's understanding? Is that something that we've collected, we budgeted?
It's what we've budgeted. Because the CIP is done in a 5-year increment.
Okay.
But obviously, we don't spend all those funds in the 5-year period. So every year, we spend them.
That's what I was wondering with the different years on those
Yes,
different line
yeah.
items there? Okay.
They also have different start dates and.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have, everybody's good? All right, and of course, when it's, just my question is to remind the public, when we say expenditure authority, it's not that they necessarily have that money ready to spend there, but it's the authority to do that once
do
the
that.
funds are encumbered or
Yes. Yes.
finalized. Okay, it's a long night.
Mayor, I'd like to move to approve the recommended action. Do you want me to read all of that?
I
wanna
think you're
repeat
fine,
it?
it's there, as long as John's good with it, I'm good with it, so, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt,
Yes.
Councilmember Laura,
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes. Okay, with that, thank you. They're very nice. I love the color. So bringing us to J6, the approval of city attorney invoices for the month of August 2023.
Because this involves my law firm, I'm going to recuse myself.
Did I skip one?
No.
Oh.
Thank you, Mayor. The item before you is the city attorney invoices for services through August 31st in the amount of $102,710.39.
Mayor, I move to approve invoices in the amount of $107,710.39.
I'll second.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt,
Yes.
Councilmember Laura,
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes. Thank you.
Real quick, when do we get a, sort of an estimate of where we are in regards to the budget for legal services?
We can bring that to you in October when we do our quarterly.
Quarterly,
update.
okay, that's
Yeah.
what I,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Okay, with that, we're at item K for legislative update.
Good evening, Mayor. There's no real legislative update to speak of this evening. Earlier this week, I sent out a end-of-session report provided to us by RPPG, our state lobbying consultant. There's a pretty good summary of some of the bills that have moved out of session and made it, that will be heading towards the governor's desk. Some of those in there had been asked about periodically, including AB 1484, I think, was one that was on the list. Anyway, so if you have specific questions, I'm happy to answer them, but other than that, we expect to see some of these signed by the governor and then some that will be vetoed, and we'll be watching those through mid-October, through the deadline, and then the legislative session will resume again after the first of the year.
Right on, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Taylor? No? Okay, seeing none, then we'll go to item L, Economic Development Update.
Thank you, Mayor. We had Economic Development Committee last Wednesday, and the committee received an update on the downtown incentive programs, talked about some proposed changes to the incentive programs, related to fire sprinklers and some of the barriers that we've seen as we've gone through the 17 or 18 applications we now have. We also talked about some other items that staff will be bringing back reports on to the committee, and our next meeting will be Wednesday, October 11th. That concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Taylor? Seeing none. Item M, Treasurer Report.
Nothing at this time.
Item N, City Clerk.
We're good.
Thank you. Item O, City Attorney.
Nothing this evening.
Item P, City Manager Report.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple quick announcements before we get into the Tri-Point Sundance update. I just want to confirm that council has at their computers the memo that was drafted. Okay, I just wanted to make sure you had it. So we were notified by RCTC that they will be holding open meetings to the public, seeking input and involvement on a potential I-10 express lane study and I-10 smart corridor. And they have selected October 4th from 10 to 12, and it will be here at City Hall. So I wanted to let you all know about that. We are happy to host RCTC in their public meetings to get input from everybody. I also have one other announcement. This Saturday is our last Gov in the Park. It will be at Palmer Park. It will be from 9 to 11. We're looking forward to seeing everybody there. And then I'd like to move on to the second update on the Sundance specific plan improvement requirements. My apologies for not including this in the packet. This was a very intensive research. This goes back all the way to 1991. There's multiple documents, multiple amendments, and all of that had to be sorted through. So in a nutshell, the first update was given to City Council on July 18th, 2023. Fast forward to now. The Sundance specific plan allows for 4,450 homes. Approximately 263 units remain today to be constructed. They do not have certificates of occupancy. That equates to the builder being at approximately 94% build out for the entire Sundance specific plan. The Sundance specific plan identified several mitigation measures, and I've divided them into categories to make it easier for discussion. And those categories include traffic improvements, traffic signalization, off-site roadway segments, and then of course landscaping improvements. I'm not going to go through each line item. These are all conditions that were put in one document or another, whether the original specific plan or amended. But as you can see in the following pages, almost every requirement has been completed. I would like to reserve Brookside Avenue for the latter part of our discussion. Traffic signal improvements, all but 2 have been mitigated through a development impact fee that was paid to the city and has been confirmed by finance. 2 of the traffic signal improvements have been completed in that they were built. Highland Springs Avenue at Oak Valley Parkway and Highland Springs Avenue at Starlight. The rest were paid through development impact fees. Moving on to off-site roadway improvements, again, all of those required improvements were paid through fees to the city, and that includes whatever was owed for the TUMF program as well. And then last but not least is the landscape improvements, and those are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 areas of landscaping that we are currently working with TriPoint on. We hold monthly meetings. We are in various stages of those landscape improvements, and one of them is actually completed. We're working on a punch list with them, and that is the detention basin at Oak Valley Parkway and Starlight. The landscaping improvements on the east side of Cherry Avenue from 8th to 10th, that is underway right now. We have signed off on the conceptuals. They're doing as-builts, and we expect those to be done by the end of this calendar year. Landscape improvements for the actual detention basin that is east of Cherry Avenue, south of Carnation, is in the first plan check. I'm sorry, it's actually was first plan checked. We made comments, we sent it back to TriPoint, and they're expecting to have the second plan check back to us within 2 to 3 weeks. Again, I'm going to reserve the Brookside Avenue for a separate discussion. The final one is the SCC, the Edison easement that has laid dormant for many, many years. We are working with them on giving them some ideas on a conceptual plan to improve that from Highland Springs to Cherry Avenue. We envision it to be somewhat of a safe routes to school pathway. We'd like it to tie into the Banning side so that if somebody in Banning wants to continue riding, walking, cartwheeling through, they can continue through the Sundance easements all the way through Beaumont Avenue. And so we're going to work to tie the improvements from the Banning side into our side to make it look like one seamless. So they're working on conceptual plans for that. So now let's talk about Brookside Avenue. Brookside Avenue, I think, is one of the biggest things that we've been discussing with TriPoint on what are you going to do. This is the southeast corner of Brookside and Cherry Avenue. It is problematic. It is a river when it rains. There's weed abatement issues there. It has no landscaping right now. It's several dozen feet away from the last wall of the development to the roadway. What we found in our research was that the condition of approval number 19 of the third amendment to the specific plan stated that the developer shall establish a land use buffer along the site's northerly perimeter, which is what we're talking about, the entire length of Brookside Avenue to provide a proper land use transition. Said buffer shall provide a masonry wall, landscape improvement requirements, and in addition to the improvements associated with the Brookside Avenue right-of-way. So there's two different things we're talking about here. We're talking about landscape buffer. We're also talking about right-of-way. The Sundance specific plan reflects a drainage channel along the south side, consistent with the Marshall Creek Channel, as identified by the Riverside County Flood Control. There is definitely a need to coordinate with Riverside County Flood Control, and that can be through a 3-party agreement with the city, the developer, and flood control, all working together to develop the plans to ensure that the drainage channel is constructed to their requirement. I want to note it is clearly an obligation of the developer. However, the bigger challenge is going to be how to widen Brookside Avenue will be accomplished along the frontage that is not part of the specific plan, and this is where we got hung up. So the developer is required to improve Brookside Avenue from Cherry Avenue to Highland Springs Avenue, not just in the frontage of their property. And so that comes with its own set of issues. That we've been working with TriPoint on developing a conceptual plan that is problematic because it's only right now in front of the project. The specific plan was amended to include the 40 acres at the southwest corner of Brookside and Highland Springs, who is another property owner. There are 40 acres at the southwest corner of Brookside and Highland Springs that's included in the specific plan. It's in the county, separate owner, but for whatever reason, was included in those improvements for Brookside Avenue. So one of the mitigation measures clearly defines the obligation to widen the road between Cherry and Highland Springs. There's no note or exception for the frontage that is not part of the specific plan. So do you want to bring up that map, Robert? Orchard Heights is the terminus of the TriPoint project. So Orchard Heights is about where the church starts. Orchard Heights, all the way to the vacant 40 acres, is in the county and is not part of the specific plan. And if you look at the map that we have, it very clearly delineates what we're talking about. So this is all Sundance specific plan. However, the mitigation measure requires that the Brookside be widened between Cherry and Highland Springs. There's going to be significant right-of-way challenges, acquisition of offsite right-of-way, and all of that's located in the county of Riverside. So bottom line, we believe that TriPoint has done everything that they're supposed to do aside from the Brookside Avenue. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Taylor in a few minutes, and she's going to talk about, from a planning perspective, what we believe is the best path forward. But I do want to very clearly tell City Council, the city has the justification to withhold certificates of occupancy in the remaining development to ensure all of the remaining mitigation measures and improvements are completed to the city's satisfaction. So you do have that right. We have that right to hold the remaining certificates of occupancy. However, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Taylor now to talk about how we can move this forward with the understanding that the Brookside Avenue improvements are much larger than what we believe can be achieved with just TriPoint.
Thank you. So as we've seen come up before, as council's aware, a lot of these old projects that were approved and conditioned either in the county or in the city, but in the late 90s, early 2000s, don't have the same kind of data and information that we have now that's available to us. So as you see on the map there, we have the city boundary, which is outlined in black, and then from where the church and the city line is there over to Highland Springs is county area. In the specific plan right now, currently the large rectangle piece that's, well, I guess that could be a square, at Highland Springs and Brookside, that south, I guess it'd be the southwest corner, that looks like it has the X on it. That's actually part of the specific plan right now as well. And we think that, I'm not sure how that happened to be back when the project came into the city, but obviously it's not within the city. It's not been developed. We have no plans on the books, and there's no plans addressed in the specific plan for that specific piece. Staff's best guess is the requirement to widen Brookside all the way across to Highland Springs was triggered because that piece is actually in the specific plan, even though it's not in the city. And so there was a nexus there for that to occur. From a planning standpoint, the path forward would be to work with the developer to amend the specific plan to remove that portion of property from the SP and just leave it as is for what's developed. In my conversations with TriPoint, there's been no indication that they're intending on developing that. And like I said, there's no plans that planning has seen or looked at to develop that piece. And that would essentially then eliminate or reduce the obligation of the developer to have to go from the city boundary further over to Highland Springs, where Ms. Gibbs was speaking about the issues that we have with existing development, existing properties, where we'd have to acquire right-of-way, which may or may not even be possible to do.
That could in fact trigger conversation about, well, if that piece which could have held this is not a part of the plan now, then this other piece is not going to be as affected as much, and therefore our duties there could be lessened.
In this specific plan, there's no plan for development either for that. It's included, but there's no, is that what you're asking about?
Yeah,
Or
but
like,
see, the fact that we're talking about widening that Brookside was based on assuming that something was gonna go there perhaps. So if you take that out and say, okay, well, then that assumption's gone, the 4 lanes then would go as well, most likely. But what else I'm concerned about, what could trigger that, well, then this may not necessarily need to be this big, or we may not necessarily need to be, is that
I
not
think
a
everything else has been addressed.
It
So there
has,
isn't anything to,
Okay,
But I do have Mr. Vestal here to talk about if council wants to move in the direction of amending the specific plan to open a path forward to completing this project. We've been working with TriPoint on some ideas, and he can share from an engineering aspect what some options are for just addressing Brookside Avenue in front of the project.
Can I ask my question before you go there? So I remember in a presentation or two when Pardee TriPoint came in here and talked about this part of the specific plan. I think they mentioned at one point that that vacant area, either they had first right of refusal or they actually owned it and then sold it to somebody. Does any of that
Still own it.
make sense to what I'm remembering?
I don't know the answer to that, but I did speak with them today, and they are not the current owners, and they have no intention.
But my question is, were they the owner when we put together the specific plan? And then by selling it off, they're relieving their responsibility of covering the rest of that?
We'd have to find out.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
all right. So you wanna go with some ideas?
All right. So even if council allows that portion to be excluded from the specific plan, the amount of improvements along Brookside are still pretty extensive. So specifically, the improvements from Cherry Avenue to Orchard Heights, which is just west of the Beaumont Calvary Chapel. The current Brookside section is approximately 31 feet, and it's an inverted crown, which means that water flows towards the center as opposed to towards the curb, which we all have experienced the flooding issue there. With the ultimate condition, the applicant or the developer would widen. And if you're looking at the screen, the existing condition is on the right that I just ruined. There we go. So this is the existing condition. Sorry, I'm not very good at this computer here. All right, so the ultimate condition. The ultimate condition would have the developer extend the south half of Brookside Avenue an additional 15, 17 feet for a total width of pavement on the south half, 32 feet. As the city manager stated, they would be required to improve the channel along the south, which if I can zoom out. In the image to the Above those two sections, you'll see the preliminary design of the channel, which is a master plan facility that the applicant would have to construct. In addition to the curb and gutter and asphalt and the channel, there's also approximately 14 power poles along that stretch that would need to be underground or relocated. If we could just turn our attention real quick to the channel. Since the channel is a master plan facility, the city would have to oversee the design of that channel to make sure it's in accordance with flood control standards. And again, as the city manager stated, that a tri-party agreement with the city, flood control, and the developer would be necessary. To give you some more background on this channel, the flood control district has begun the design for Marshall Creek Stage 1, which is the downstream portion of the channel we were just looking at. They're in the environmental stage now, but they do have a tentative schedule of construction or going out to bid in, I think it's the last quarter of 2025. The alignment you see here, you can see Cherry Avenue and Brookside Avenue. This is just one of the alternatives proposed, which is a storm drain pipe along Brookside Avenue, and then it goes north along Noble Street to the existing Marshall Channel. However, it's important to note that the district has not chosen an alternative, and there have been high-level talks about potentially collecting water north of the location that's shown there. I think the intersection is Lincoln and Jonathan, which is roughly one street north and one street east of Cherry and Brookside. In any case, the developer would be responsible to coordinate with flood control, regardless if they are tying in at Cherry Avenue and Brookside, or if there's a redesign that requires the drainage to occur in a different pattern that's shown. So staff feels that by the developer constructing the ultimate improvements consistent with what the specific plan has already identified, that'll provide the most benefit to the city.
But that's not the full length, though. That's just from that one piece.
Just in front of the project.
Just in front of the
From
project.
Cherry to Orchard.
From Cherry to Orchard.
Correct.
Well, this
Cherry
one
to
says
Orchard.
Noble. Where are you at?
Cherry to Orchard.
Yeah, right in front of, past the church. Now, that's not you said, so it's gonna go south, which would be on the side of the project, of course. Is that an extension of Brookside is in width? Or is that just the pipe and the channel on that side, but the Brookside stays the same width?
No, so Brookside would widen. Currently, it's 15 feet on the south of Brookside Avenue for the duration of Cherry Avenue to Highland Springs.
Mm-hmm.
For this portion, they would widen it to 32 feet south of the center line.
So, but it'll bottleneck though, because.
It will. It'll transition at both ends. However, so obviously that's not ideal. It does happen throughout our city. In this particular case, it may be beneficial that in the event that that channel doesn't function to its ultimate capacity, having the extra width, we could potentially, not we, but potentially the flooding could occur, outside of a travel lane, and you'd potentially have a lane that is clear, yeah.
When it rains, eastbound traffic uses the westbound lane.
Yeah, because of course, we've all been on that, so. All right.
So council, I just wanted to give you all of the research that we found and some of the dilemmas. Certainly, we are not in any way trying to alleviate Tri-Point from their adopted conditions. However, there's homes involved in the county that the street, the developer would have to get right of way. There's multitude of issues with going all the way to Highland Springs.
All right, go ahead, Mr. White.
So on the off-site roadway segments, those are all, well, real quick, when you say that the developer would have to do whatever it is that you agree that they have to, that means before permits are for occupancy?
On the homes you're talking
Yeah,
about?
on the remaining homes?
That council would have to direct us to no longer issue C of Os.
Okay. And then on the offsite roadway segments, everything shows on there is fees paid. So let me just ask you about the first item, provide ramp and bridge improvements, fees paid. It doesn't have a completed like some of the other ones. I know there were some signal improvements at Oak Valley, but that's not what this fees paid is for, correct?
This is the, the first one, provide ramp and bridge improvements for Oak Valley Parkway. So
Yeah.
they paid their fair share.
Okay,
It
so how
didn't
much,
cover the entire project.
do we know what share, or how much their share of the fair share was? And
Individually, Lisa, do you know? And I don't know if we know individually.
okay.
No.
I just, again, I'm remembering, I was sort of led to believe that, that those, their share of that, when we were negotiating with WRCOG, was an amount that was significant to really put us in a position to start to expand and improve upon. I think, I don't know why 19 million stands out, but it was something like that, that was their share, or it was either their share or the cost at that time of building a ramp. I can't believe you'd have anything like that where that's, that cheap these days, but I was just curious to where all of these other improvements lie in that. In other words, we have money, but we can't start them because we don't have everybody's fair share?
Correct. And I can tell you that I don't know the individual amounts for each of those line items, but collectively, TriPoint has paid almost $10 million in TUMP fees.
Okay. Be nice to know on a critical one, especially since it's, the ones that are related to I-10, what our gap is and, present that to our congressman. Because he seems to be very interested in helping us right now. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Lar?
Yes, thank you. First of all, thank you so much for the research. The concern for me was that homes were being finalized and work was not finished. I guess one question I would have is, they're 94% built out. What percentage of work would you say remains on that Brookside? Because that looks like an awful lot of work to do. Would you say that's?
Say 100%.
So would you say that, based on their conditions, they have, Brookside is 20% of the work?
Of their total work?
Of their total work? In other words, what I'm trying to get at is, the way that I read the conditions of approval was that the building or development needed to be consistent or keep pace with the infrastructure that was built, right? So if they're 94% done with the build-out on the homes, they should be 94% done with the conditions of approval.
Correct.
That doesn't appear to be the case with Brookside, as far as that being one of the conditions or a condition of approval. So what I'm trying to say is Brookside 6% of what's left?
We'd have to go back and list all of the improvements and calculate the comparison between, I know what you're getting
Okay.
at, but we
All
have
right.
not done that research.
Because, and I understand what you're saying in regards to TriPoint having to finish out 2 Highland Springs. The concern that I have is we continually get blasted with traffic issues. Not having TriPoint finish this out to Highland Springs, what kind of traffic issue would that create? Because it looks like it would create a bottleneck at the church area if they were not going to, which is another potential traffic issue, because that area is heavily traveled from Highland Springs through Cherry. It's a cut through. And so do we set ourselves, if we allow TriPoint to skip out on finishing what they know that they've had to do for 25 years, where does that leave the city and where does that leave us if people start to complain, well, why did you, you knew they had to do it, why did you let them off the hook? That's my concern is, and then we're creating our own bottleneck ahead of time. We know what's gonna happen. And then how do we defend that to our constituents, is my concern. I know it's a lot of work and I know that there's probably a lot of cost, but this isn't new to them.
All right, thank you. Mr. White?
So if TriPoint had owned that last piece, there's a section between, you know, that's in the county, what is that, from Orchard over to where that piece starts. Would they have been responsible for that section too, or would they have only done the area that's from Orchard to Cherry and the area in front of that
You mean
vacant square?
If we were to look at it now?
Yeah.
So, well, it would depend what the traffic study yielded, right? Or what the model spit out that said they were required to do. So typically, we always require improvements along the frontage of the project. So we know they would at least have been required to do along that north side, the whole north boundary of that. Then depending on what the model would show, we would look at, do they need to do, you know, improvements all the way down, or are they gonna have a fair share that shows they're responsible for a certain percentage of the improvements, just like we've seen in some of these other, in the other projects that we look at now. So, we don't unfortunately have a ton of data in the old traffic study that's probably 25 years old now at this point, that backs up the condition either way necessarily, just we know that it was conditioned.
And the area of Brookside that's east of Church, in between Church and Highland Springs, we have flooding issues there?
Yeah,
From-
I mean, it,
No, from about Weinsack.
I mean, we're talking about a big benefit that we're getting from doing the other part for the flood area along there. Is there a benefit to the flooding conditions if we stick to our guns on this one?
I don't know, I know that, yeah, the county a lot of times
I would say,
has to close that road.
Okay.
yeah, because the flooding starts east in the county.
And just so that I'm clear, the condition as it sits right now states that they have to do the improvement from Cherry to Highland Springs, right? Okay.
You're not looking for anything from us, right?
No, but
No. I would just say I don't really want to play, you know, the other side or the devil's advocate on this, but I mean, looking at the properties and what we're looking here, I mean, these are substantial impacts to that small group of property right there that the county's going to have to mitigate. And I would assume, you know, further down, you're not going to worry about it as much as you move east towards Highland Springs, but the amount of time to probably go in, do all of that, this mitigation is probably not going to occur for 5 or 6 years, even if we're looking at it in that aspect. So I would just feel like that would be something of caution we might need to think about. I'm never gonna want to be somebody that says, hey, that's the county's problem in this aspect here. But my concern would be, what is the time frame in which that's going to take for TriPoint to even do this? Just kind of as another side of things.
That's true. Thank you for that. The only thing I would mention on that is like Mr. Lara said, is like they knew this was coming. You know, they signed off on it. They should have studied that. They should have known this. And now that it's the end, it's like, oh, okay. And then we get to this point now where if this is going to go another 5 or 10 years, what is that going to do? You know, but that's going to be a potential discussion that we have is like, well, so what does that mean? So I don't want to go too far into that now. It looks like you'll need to do a little more research and give us a few more little options, I assume, as far as how to mitigate. Is that what you're looking for?
No,
It's already improved.
we've exhausted our options. So the option, there's
hold
a
fast
few
or-
options on the table. We continue, no action, you know, we continue with all the way to Highland Springs. We amend the specific plan as we discussed and focused on the frontage in front of their project.
With the channel type
Right,
idea.
or, so those are the two options. What I'm hearing from council is we continue with the condition of approval that's already in the specific plan. And we'll report back to Tri-Point and let them know that that's where we're at.
And you had a request from Councilmember White to look into that one issue.
And I will get that question answered, absolutely.
Okay, well, I think at this point, that's kind of what we're looking at.
Just one more comment, and well, actually, a couple more. Is it possible for Tri-Point to enter into an agreement with the County of Riverside on that section of property that's in the County of Riverside, to complete that at some point in time? Because Councilmember Voigt brings up a good point, and I understand that, but at some point, I would like that finished. Now, whether that's under the county requirements and not the city requirements, at least we could say, you know what, Tri-Point has an agreement with the county to finish that at some point.
You're
Maybe
talking
that-
about from the church to,
From the church to Highland
Highland
Springs,
Springs.
the portion that's in the county of Riverside, because
comply
that's not in
with
the
the-
city limits, correct?
it's not in the city limits. So I want to make sure I follow you. An agreement between the county and the developer that basically holds the developer accountable to the condition of approval from the city of Beaumont. I want to make sure I have that clear.
Well, it would be, yeah, that holds them accountable to have an agreement, I guess, with the county of Riverside.
Right, to comply with the specific plan.
Right.
Okay. I would have to ask the county.
Meaning, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
That then at that point, we would give them their occupancy then. So if they showed us an agreement with the county and the developer, then we could release the occupancy at that
Well,
point.
they would have to finish the portion within the city limits.
Correct.
Right, and then they could,
And then as long as we saw the agreement and whatever else occurred there, then we
just a
could.
thought.
Yeah.
The other concern that I have is anytime that you withhold final occupancy at that point, there's, in my experience, my prior experience is you always run into issues with, oh, I have moving cars in the driveway. I would prefer to hold up issuance because theoretically, they're not in compliance with the conditions of approval to issue a permit rather than hold up occupancy. So I would just jump ahead to that point. That way, because if you hold up occupancy, you hold up financing a home, you hold up signing off on the job card, and financing falls through. I just think you can avoid a litany of issues if you hold up issuance. That's just my suggestion. Thank you, that's all I have.
Well, just to add to what Mr. Lara brought up as far as involving the county, we could make that as part of the amendment, right? The specific plan amendment that the developer would have to get some kind of an agreement from the county.
Yeah,
So
if we revisited the specific plan, we could also revisit that condition and bifurcate it essentially so that we could require them to do the part that they have here and then work with the county on the other part. There are some technical issues that we run into with, as was mentioned previously, enforcing a city condition in the county when it comes to acquiring property and things like that. It becomes a much different issue when it's
eminent
not,
domain.
right, when it's not property within the city boundaries. So there would be a question as to how we would go about that, or how the developer would go about that. So
Some of those properties between the church and the vacant land, their yards and their homes go through what would potentially be Brookside Avenue.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we got that going. Are you comfortable with that? Okay. All right, that'll bring us to item Q, future agenda items. First, do we have any from council that would like to put on the agenda for future? Seeing none, do we have any questions on those that are listed there?
I would just like to, thank you, Mayor. I would just like to mention one thing. I appreciate noticing the enforcement of sidewalk vendors on there. I was approached by a neighboring city council member to potentially discuss that. So I didn't need to bring it up today, so thank you.
Oh, very well. All right, Councilor White.
I did notice an article, and I shared it with our attorney, with the latest resolution, I think that's Palm Springs put out regarding street vendors, and be interesting to sort of look at that when we talk about this next in our.
I saw that, good.
Okay, seeing no others, we'll go to council reports. Councilmember Finn, or Mayor Pro Tem Finn is absent today. Councilmember Lara, can you start us?
Sure. WRCOG rescheduled their meeting from September 1st to September 11th. I attended that meeting. Nothing to share from that meeting. We have just a friendly reminder that our Parks and Recreation District is collecting candy for 2 events, Trunk or Treat and Monster Mash. Also, I wanted just to commend Sue Foxworth on the community cleanup, which was Saturday. And also thank of course, the Interact group, which always seems to help out on these city events. There's now a new group which is called Early Act, which is a smaller, younger group. Which school is that? Do you know?
I don't know, Early Act's been around for a while.
Has it?
Yeah, it's site-specific. We used to have 4 Early Act clubs. It's a junior version of Rotary, junior version of Interact. It changes year to year based on volunteerism.
Okay, thank you. And then Jose with Code Enforcement, I guess was directing traffic. We also had Waste Management and staff. We just appreciate it because it was well attended. So thank you very much for that. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember White?
So at RCTC, we approved moving forward with the SMART corridor. It was mentioned earlier in our meeting because I think RCTC is looking at other areas. And the SMART corridor is a program that was originally designed and first implemented in Australia. And then I think outside of Denver, they have also put this in place. And we will be the first, I think, one of the first in California, if not the first, we meaning RCTC, for putting it in at Temecula, Marietta. And basically what it does is the ramps, they work together. So if ramp 3 is is busier than ramp 2, then ramp 2 will start letting fewer cars on, ramp 3 will start letting more cars on. So it works across the whole thing. And they've had a lot of success, so I don't know that I knew RCTC's plan is that we're going to put this in place. It'll probably, I think, take a year and a half, 2 years, might be a little bit longer. And then we're going to revisit it probably halfway through the project and look at it, see if it makes sense to move it to other areas outside the county. So that'll be really, that would help us a lot, especially with what we have at Highland Springs, Oak Valley, and Cherry Valley now. So anyways, that was all I have.
Sounds like RCTC needs a trip to Australia just to make sure. No?
Actually, they came here. They were at our meeting, so.
That is fun. All right. Councilmember Boyd?
I attended the 33rd Oktoberfest this weekend, which was a great opportunity and fun. My husband was recognized as the favorite American German of the year, so that was fun to attend with them this week. Other than that, we did have kind of a big impactful loss this week with Jody and her contributions to BYB. So I just kind of wanted to mention her and everything that she's provided for our community. She definitely left a lasting impact, and especially with having those girls here, she was one who left an impact. So we thank her.
Did your husband compete in the Stein holding contest?
He did not, but I did carry I did the Queen's contest, but I got knocked out at 18 steins. It's like 70 pounds. I was pretty proud of myself.
So Burgermeister for him next year, or no?
No, he doesn't want that spotlight.
Oh, okay. All right, well, thank you for that. So just briefly, I attended the mayor's breakfast with the council from Banning and Calamasa, and had a good discussion about some of our regional approach and what we're doing, and really went well this time, having some discussions about what's going on with our cities and in between the cities. Attended the Public Works Open House. That was really interesting to see that, and I like the space they have over there. So I'm glad that's working out. Of course, the Youth Council selection I did with staff, and which came to what you saw today. So that's going really strong. And of course, have been working diligently on the state of city. So hope to see many of you there next week. Can't believe it's already getting here. It's incredible. So we'll see. All right, and on that note, we'll adjourn at 8:11 p.m.
Was the supervisor showing?